What's the one secret that's not only made a lot of wealth for me, but also helped our best-selling author that's joining us today? Tune in. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you that works so hard for your money, and you're now ready for your money to start working harder for you today. You want that freedom. You want that cash flow. You want to become work optional, where you work because you want to, not because you have to. But you're not just doing it to get rich. You're doing it because you want to live a rich life. You want to be able to spend the time doing what you love with those you love, and most importantly, as you're blessed financially, as you have greater resources to expand and grow your stewardship, you are also able to bless more lives. And that is the ripple effect I'm so proud, so happy to be a part of today. Thank you for tuning in, binging, especially now we've gone now 11 years on this show, over 900 episodes, and that's all because of you guys. So thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this today. Hey, as always, if you ever have questions, you ever want to go deeper down that rabbit hole, be sure not only to subscribe to these videos on YouTube on the Money Ripples with Chris Miles page, but also check out moneyripples.com. All right, guys. So I'm bringing on a guest here today that I'm actually really excited and kind of shocked that I haven't invited him on earlier, because I was just telling him before we went on the air, I was actually introduced to the very concept that he was talking about before the book became a bestseller. Right as they're about to launch this book called The Go Giver. Maybe some of you read this book. I'm talking about bestselling author Bob Burg here. Now, if you've ever read this book, you know this completely aligns with what we talk about in the show, especially because it's all about what we talk about, that ripple effect that we talk about here. It's exactly what it's referring to. And especially if you want to prosper in your life, that's exactly what it is. And so I'm so excited to be able to bring Bob on here today to take us beyond the book. What are those things that can actually help us prosper in our lives, not just financially, but in all aspects? So, Bob, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Chris, and congratulations on your many years now and 900 episodes. That's absolutely wonderful.
I know. I guess people kind of call me like an OG in this space, which
Yeah, you are.
yeah, I don't know if that's a compliment or if that's just a
Oh, it's a
knock
compliment.
at me. But I'm excited to have you here because I remember hearing about the book The Go Giver, and when they introduced it to me, I said aligns perfectly what I teach about, especially where I talked often, even 20 years ago about how dollars follow value, and the real thing
Right.
is stop asking how to make more money, but how can I serve more people in a way that adds value, it serves or solves problems and things like that. And then your book comes out and beautifully explains all of it and then some. And so, tell us what inspired you in the first place to go down this route.
Well, I mean, years ago, I had a book out called Endless Referrals. That was back in the 90s. And it
Oh
was a
yeah,
how-to book for entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service. They knew it brought lots of value to their customers and clients, but they didn't necessarily feel confident in terms of, or capable in terms of going out into their local communities and building the kinds of relationships that would cause people to want to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So really, Endless Referrals was a how-to guide. The basic premise was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And the book was the system to helping them do that. I personally define a system simply as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how to principles, the key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. But, again, it was a how-to book. And I'd always thought, since I'd been in sales, loved reading business parables. Parables are stories with a message. And
yeah.
I think we all know intuitively that stories really connect with the reader on a deeper
Mhm.
level than a how-to book. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take that basic message, that basic premise, and put it in story form? Now, I'm really not a parable writer, so the idea just kind of sat for a while. And fortunately, I was working, or I was writing a monthly column for a magazine And John David Mann was the editor in chief. And even back then, he had a fantastic reputation as an excellent writer, storyteller. He also had a background in entrepreneurship and leadership, and great guy, just a wonderful guy. And I eventually just, I asked him if he would be the lead writer and storyteller. He's the only one I wanted to do this with.
Mhm.
And fortunately, he said yes. And so we worked on this together. The easiest part was probably getting the book written, and again, that's because of him and his amazing abilities. The toughest part was finding a publisher, because over the course of the next year, as our agent approached New York publishing houses, we were rejected 24 times before the 25th one
Wow.
finally took us on. But they turned out to be the perfect publishing partner, so it all worked out perfectly.
How was that process? I mean, having to go from publisher to publisher to publisher. I mean, did that ever get discouraging for you?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you get a no, it's never something you'd like. But as a salesperson, as a sales professional, we know that we live in no's, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I think really one of the things that drives a lot of good potential salespeople out of sales before they ever have a chance to succeed in it is not that they're told no. It's thinking that they're the only ones who are told no, because they see all these people from their company or organization or whatever, walking across stage at these conferences and getting these awards or having these plaques in the office, and they think, oh, they just, everybody they talked to just said, yeah, well, that's not
Mhm.
not so at all, right? And so,
Right.
so it's really just understanding that human nature. I don't think any of us like hearing no, but it's part of the process. Now, what John and I did as we were getting all these no's was we really made a decision, and that is, rather than let our egos take over, right? We
Mhm.
just asked, what can we learn from every one of these no's? And our agent, Margaret McBride, is so fantastic in terms of getting feedback. And so, some of them were just, we don't like it. Some were just, we don't need another business parable. Others were, good story. The timing's not just right. Others had other, and those are more conditions than objections. Those are just things that it's not going to, but there were also those that had some good ideas and good thoughts and that we could take and rework. And one of them, though, and this is one of the later ones, what they said was, well, Margaret, Bob and John, they just don't have a big enough platform. Now, in publisher speak, platform simply means enough people who already know them and would buy their book just because they're them, right?
Yeah.
That's what platform is. But here's the thing. I knew John and I both had very large platforms at that time. So it was obvious that it was on our end, the lack of communicating that idea.
Mm.
Right. So, and what I also figured was, if they felt that way, even though they were the only ones that said it, maybe there were other publishers who thought the same thing. Maybe
Right.
what they said was the objection was kind of an objection, but it was really they just didn't feel we had a big enough platform. So we went back and just invested, time, money, energy, what have you, in putting together a whole new preview demo that we could, that Margaret could take to the publishers in order to show that, yeah, we certainly did have a platform that could help launch the book pretty
Yeah.
big. And I think that helps. So I think by being open when you get the no's, it puts you in a position where you can create the environment for that future success.
I love that. That's a lesson you can take in a lot of different platforms or a lot of different areas of life, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is. And my friends Andrea Walt and Richard Fenton, speaking of parables, they wrote a parable that came out, I think, about a year or so after The Go Giver, and it's called Go for No.
Hmm.
And the subtitle is, Yes is the destination, no is how you get there. And
Mm.
really what they did is they reframed the concept of no to
Yeah.
something that, while again, you still don't want to hear no, right? You can kind of look at it a lot differently. And I always told them I wish I'd had it for that book 40 years ago when I had first gotten into sales, because it was something I needed, because I, looked at no's the same way as everybody else did.
Yeah.
And so what they did is they really reframed it into something that a salesperson could take all of those no's and use them to really advance the process.
Yeah. That no is the path to yes, isn't it?
Exactly. Sure
Yeah.
is.
Well, what was your motivation behind writing The Go Giver in the first place?
I think John and I both felt that the time was right for this message.
Hmm.
Human nature is such that most of us, most people, because you don't want to say all, because there are always those exceptions, but human nature covers most people
Yeah.
have a need to do good in this world, to
Mhm.
add value to the world, to make a difference on some level, and to be rewarded well for it. And as entrepreneurs, excuse me, and salespeople, we tend to do that mainly through our work, right? And that doesn't mean we
Mhm.
can't be involved in other things, of course, but mainly it's through the work we do is how we make a difference in life.
Yeah.
And so, as you know, as we all know, sales has always been looked at as that necessary evil, right? And also just looked down at in terms of when people say, "Well, I don't like sales," or "I can never sell," and what I say is, it's not that they don't like sales; it's that they don't like what they think selling is.
Hmm.
Right? Because if you think selling is about trying to convince someone to buy something they don't want or need,
Yeah.
which by the way isn't selling, that's called being a con artist, right?
Yeah.
Which, if you think that's selling, of course you don't want to do it. It's incongruent with your values, right? But if
Yeah.
you look at selling as simply discovering what the other person does need, does want, does desire, and helping them to get it,
Hmm.
now you know that sales is not only not a necessary evil, it's a necessary good.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's benevolent because it helps that other person and it also helps you. And it's a win for everybody involved. And so I think that John and I both felt people were ready to hear that message now, right?
Hmm.
That it wasn't that you could do well for yourself despite doing good for others. No, that you did well for yourself because you're doing good for others.
Right.
Right. And as you sort of alluded to earlier, I think just the words may have been a little different, but John and I often say that money is simply an echo of value.
Yeah.
It's the thunder to values lightning. So when you focus on providing value, one of the things I used to say when I spoke at sales conventions, and I at 67, I'm off the road now. I don't get on airplanes, so don't really do that anymore. But for the longest time when I did, I'd start out speaking at a sales conference by saying, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? They're
Yes.
not going to buy from you because you need the money or have a sales goal or even because you're a really nice human being. People are going to buy from you. They're going to do business with you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so, right? So when you
Exactly.
think about it, the best thing you can do, the most self-interested thing you can do is place your self-interest to the side and make it all about that other person and bringing them what they need, what they want, what they desire. So we felt the world was kind of ready for that, and not that we wrote necessarily anything new. I mean, these
Mhm.
principles have been around forever, right? But just kind of put it in a different way. And it happened that the timing was right, and it got off to a good start.
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah, yeah. It takes me back because what you just said, I mean, that's something I didn't even learn really till 2006, when I started going around different people, right? People that were financially prosperous. Because, you probably don't know my backstory, but I actually started out as a traditional financial advisor. In fact, think I recall Endless Referrals being one of the referred books in our company. Yeah, so that's interesting you said that. I didn't make the connection there between the two. But as a financial advisor, because I came from a scarcity mentality, growing up with my dad, who would work really hard, but he would also trash talk rich people, right? And so I would always think that you'd only get rich by either one getting lucky, like winning the lottery, or two screwing somebody over, because there's always a zero sum game, like somebody won and or somebody lost. But because I had that conflict in me, I said, well, I don't want to be the person that screws people over. So to be a good person, I'm going to make sure I don't make any money, as a financial advisor so that my clients make more, not realizing that no, if I actually focus on the service and that the money is just the receipt of the service and the giving that I'm offering people and doing good for them, then once I got that paradigm shift, then all of a sudden making money became not just easier, it became formulaic, right? Like you had said earlier, it becomes predictable.
Mhm. Yeah, oh, that's key. And the mindset you're talking about, and when you talk about your dad, great
Mhm.
guy. hard worker, wonderful man, probably honest as the day is long.
Yeah.
And yet, he had his belief systems that he picked up from other people who picked it up from other people. And what is a belief? A belief is a subjective truth. It's the truth as we understand the
Right.
truth to be, which means it could be the truth, but just as likely it's probably not. It's just
Hmm.
a belief, right?
Yeah.
And so, based on upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, popular culture, cultural mores, social media, we get all these very anti-prosperity messages out there. I mean,
Hmm.
absolute anti-prosperity messages, and that's what people grow up with. They're exposed to it all the time. It's in their head, and it's in their hearts, and their conscious, and their unconscious, and it's in conflict.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it's that. When you're younger, when the question most of us were asked, "Hey, when you grow up, do you want to be rich or happy?" Well, yes, but
Yeah.
that's the false dichotomy, that treacherous dichotomy, that unnecessary use of the word or that we've all grown. And if you
Yeah.
study these, there's so many wonderful prosperity and abundance teachers out there. There are people like Randy Gaze. There are people like the late Bob Proctor, the David Nagel, Sharon Lechter, Lisa Peterson, Ellen Rogan, Ken Honda, just who do all this great. And 99.9% of what they teach is just getting past that anti-prosperity mindset that we have been infected with by the world around us,
Right.
right? And it's all those those nasty anti-prosperity memes and that we accept, and so I think that's really a big thing. And you were able to get past that, and fortunately, I think more and more the world is recognizing that. Yet there's still a lot of that going on out there, and all you have to do is watch the political talk, or and social media talk, and you see it. So I think it's a constant work in progress.
Absolutely. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. I want to ask you because I know you and I share kind of a common belief about free markets. Because it seems like we're kind of almost touching on that subject, anyways, right? What's your opinion on the free markets, especially what's going on right now? We've got the whole Doge thing, and everybody's debating. I mean, you got people really mad right now about trying to disrupt what you're talking about. Like, really, it's all these beliefs about rich
Oh,
people and money and what we should be doing. I mean, that's coming up a lot right now. What's your opinion on what's happening in the world today?
well, I mean, if you look at the argument,
Hmm.
okay, and you took politics out of it, you talk who doesn't like this person and who likes this person, and who, because if
Yeah.
you look at all the back and forth going on, it's typically about the people doing it as opposed to what's actually being done.
So true.
And if you don't like somebody, the chances are you don't trust them to do the right thing, and uh, you place malintent, on what they're doing. So first, if we look at free markets, what do free markets really represent? It's the ultimate in when we talk about liberty, that everyone has the right to live their life and pursue happiness however they see fit, personally and business wise, so long in whatever way they choose, so long as they don't infringe upon the rights of anyone else to do the same.
Exactly.
Okay. So free market capitalism in its purest sense would say the legitimate responsibility of government is to protect the citizenry against force and fraud, okay, but
Right.
otherwise to leave people free to buy, sell, and trade however and in whatever way they see fit. That is capital. Capitalism doesn't mean there's no rules that you can rip people off, that you can. No, of
Right.
course not. Okay. Now, but what happens is we don't operate in a free market system. Okay. We operate in a system that's very what's called cronyism, where there's a lot of rules and regulations that are really not there to protect the citizenry like the politicians would like it to seem. It's
Mhm.
because K Street's lobbyists representing some, whether it's a big conglomerate or a special interest or what have you, basically pays money or other goodies to those Congress people to have them make special rules, laws, and regulations that protect their interest. Okay,
Yeah.
that is not free market capitalism, but unfortunately, that's what many people think free market capitalism is. So
Hmm.
if you're operating from a false premise, you can never achieve a correct conclusion. So it's first really educating people as to what free market really means and what it doesn't mean. When we operate from there, then we understand that that to the degree markets have been allowed to open up, okay, that's the degree that we have rid the world of so much poverty, so much suffering. There's actually food enough to feed the world 10 times over.
Yeah.
It's basically governments, they're dictators and so forth that keep this from happening.
That's
Okay,
right.
so when it comes to so when it comes to government spending, the first question you've got to ask yourself is, based on a philosophy, if it's free market capitalism, whatever it happens to be that you believe, what is government's legitimate role in spending? And if you believe their role is to do X, Y, and Z, okay, then anything above and beyond that is wrong, just by, again, by definition. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. I want sunlight to
Mhm.
shine upon the spending. It should. The
Yep.
government works for us, for we the people. They're not our bosses, they're our employees.
That's right.
And so anything they're spending should absolutely be open. The book should be totally open. So again, whether it's Donald Trump and Elon Musk, or what, or Joe Biden and his person, or whoever it happened, whatever, it should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I'll leave people in their emotions to say, oh, Berg, you just blah 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 blah. But no, I want us to look at it logically. And logically, this is something that we need to have done, and it should have been done many, many years ago.
Yeah. The
My
last person I remember doing something like this was actually Bill Clinton on the other side of the aisle, right? And
well,
he was
it's
trying to
what's
balance the
interesting.
budget.
What's interesting about that too is I saw a video of Bill Clinton and Al Gore
Hmm.
talking about the runaway spending,
Yep.
right? And how they need to make sure that it's that this and that is not happening. I mean, they said exactly what we believe should be said. Now, yeah, he balanced the budget. I think there was a lot of probably here and there that didn't, because there was still a lot of um, uh, I'm not sure how cleaned up it actually was, and there were certain
Hmm.
things that led down the road to certain things happening that. But that said, what he said was absolutely correct.
Hmm.
In fact, Barack Obama said something similar
Yep.
about spending, needing to not spending it because he didn't believe in curtailing spending, but waste. And so good, I totally credit that. Yeah. And so was it not good to be looking at waste when it's a Democrat and not a Republican? Or
Right.
now, by the way, just I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, so I have no uh, uh, personal um,
Like affiliation.
affiliation here that I'm sticking up for one or the other. I just want the spending to I want everybody to know where your tax dollar is going, okay? And then you can decide, is this a legitimate function of government or not? But,
Yeah.
when money is being spent, that just, because remember, when government, which is both elected officials but mainly bureaucrats, and human nature says when it's not your money, you spend it a lot differently than when it is your money, right? There's not the incentive
Yeah.
to spend it wisely to and so forth. That it is when it's when it's individual. So yeah, there's a
So,
lot going on there.
so true. Well, and that's what I love because these two things do kind of come together between not just government spending, but also like capitalism in the form that the founding fathers were trying to create. And even they said, the government's there to help protect from force and fraud and those kind of things. Slavery, obviously, those sort of things to put
Yeah.
guardrails up and protect us from that, which nobody disagrees with. But it's also like allowing people to really, essentially, like you say, really be a go-giver, right? Like somebody to actually go and give and create this common good for the world, which let's be honest, I mean, anybody who's a business owner knows we could probably spend money better than the government does,
Oh, sure. Well,
especially when
remember,
we know it's our money.
yeah. Well, and one reason why the free market works so much better and so much more efficiently is because there's no force
Yeah.
involved. People only buy from somebody because they believe their lives will be better by doing so. Okay. Now, the fact that we had the absolute monstrosity, the evil of slavery back at the beginning of our country for the first 100 and so years, um, was an abomination. So there
Mhm.
was no such thing as free market back then because there was slavery. So by
Yeah.
definition, it was not free market and it was wrong, monstrous, and there's no excuse for it. Um, what we need to look at now is, where do we go from here? You know, and do we really want a society in which people are again first free to live their own lives as they see fit, providing they don't infringe upon the rights of anyone else, and a
Yeah.
prosperous society, right?
That's
Where
right.
where there are jobs for everyone who wants one and enough charity for everyone who truly needs it and cannot help themselves. And we're going to do that much better when we have a free market type of system than if we have central planning, which not only has never worked, because again, it goes against human nature, right?
Mhm.
But it has resulted in the deaths of hundreds of millions of people, whether we're talking about the USSR, North Korea, China, Cuba, and so
Venezuela.
forth. It's Venezuela. Oh my gosh. I mean,
Mm.
there's so many case studies on this. And to think that so many people still actually root for socialism. Yeah, to me, it's mind-boggling. But again, we're always talking about going back to human nature and how people think.
Yeah.
And, so it certainly is what it is. But that's why I think education and being able to explain things in a way that you don't insult the other person, as you're trying to do it. People are just not going to change their mind when they're called an idiot or they're called a
Mm.
bad per evil or, what have you. And we see
That's
that
right.
just much too much.
Yeah. It's a little petty.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Now, Bob, I know you have a newsletter. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's called the Daily Impact email. I send it Monday through Friday, and it's a touch of sales, people skills, leadership. Usually takes about a minute or two to read each morning, and we have a lot of companies that use that in their sales meetings, or we have families that discuss the key point of it and so forth. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. We'll definitely put that in the show notes, guys. Visit Berg.com to go get on his newsletter. As you can tell, he's a wealth of information that we could easily take this podcast a lot longer, but we're trying to be respectful of your time, Bob, and also listeners' time too. So,
Exactly.
but one final question we always ask our guests. As you know, it's the Money Ripples podcast, right? And we talk about that ripple effect you create to bless people's lives. Bob, what do you feel is your ripple effect you're here to create?
I think by nature I'm an encourager. And I think my purpose really is to help people see the best in themselves,
Mm,
to help people feel genuinely good about themselves, and to be able to help them to help other people do the same and create the ripple effect that way.
definitely a ripple effect of encouragement, right? And positivity, which we
Yeah,
definitely need a lot more of in this world. I can tell you that much.
I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Well, Bob, I appreciate your time today. It's been so fantastic having you on. Really, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Really a pleasure.
So for all the rest of you guys, like, this is the thing. Like you have your own ripple effect to create. You can also be able to give great value and be able to bless more lives. And in such, you can also be blessed in turn as well. That's the beauty of this. Like our self-interest is what makes that world go around. So guys, be sure to subscribe at berg.com if you want to hear more from Bob and be able to hear more of his thoughts and those kind of tips that he'll give, whether it be in business and sales or whatnot. Be sure to do that today. Go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week, and we'll see you later.